So this is why we still sit on the negativity space, because it's about being safe. And if we can mitigate as many negative things as possible, then we shall be safer. And that statement isn't exactly incorrect, but we very quickly run the risk of staying in the negative space and trying to eliminate that rather than looking at the positive space and what have we already attained that keeps us safe. Yeah. And sometimes the mind can swing like a pendulum. People with anxiety often swing like a pendulum, and for themselves, they even know the logic. Like, there's no reason for me to be panicky or upset about it, but that doesn't help because they're swinging with the pendulum, and they have to find their ways of managing that. And the other thing too about the mind, so this plays into the negativity space, is you have the same hormones that are released around your body, regardless of whether you're excited or terrified. They're the same hormones that roam around. What
Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Napta, and welcome back to Wisdom in a Pocket, a space where we hold the small wisdom close to the heart. This is episode 9, and today's episode is for everyone to need the reminders, a reminder that you are allowed to feel good, that joy is not something you have to earn, that no matter how heavy things have felt, a shift is possible. A lighter way of living is possible, and that start in the mind. It starts with the mind. So here is something worth knowing. Research shows that a positive mindset does not just make you happier. It actually improve your physical health, strengthening your immune system, build resilience, and help you live longer. So for today's episode, I have with me a wonderful guest, Yvonne Roseney, a positive mindset well-being coach, author, and a speaker. So Yvonne, welcome back to Wisdom in a Pocket. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. It's a lovely introduction. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name, as you've said, is Yvonne Roseney. I'm a mindset wellbeing coach, and I am English born, Irish bred, New Zealander, who's also lived and worked in Australia quite a bit. So change has actually been very much part of my DNA, and having to cope with different scenarios, different changes, different cultures, different ways of doing things, and everybody thinking their way is the right way, and having to fit in and find your own pathway through all of that. And because of that, I have had the privilege of having a few careers in my life and working through different jobs and stuff. And it got to a point where I was pretty much wondering, well, there must be a connectability with all of these things, and what is it? And that's how I found the life of coaching. Didn't even know the thing existed, quite frankly, until I was thinking I will be this person that I could have done with the what next. And it was only when I was doing my own research, there is this world of coaching, which I think is fascinating. And this straight off, just to kind of set the scene, because a lot of people struggle to understand, well, what is a coach? A lot of people think of us as being therapists and counselors and psychologists, etc. And it's not quite the same. So I've got a very easy 30-second way to differentiate, so that when we go ahead and talk about positivity today, your audience has an understanding of what context it's coming from. So if you were here with me today as my client, and we were looking at who you are today and what brought you to be the person you are today, very much in the therapist, counselling, psychologist, psychiatry area, because what's made you be the person today can involve trauma, uncertainty, belief systems that may not be serving you very well. And so that type of person helps you unpick and figure out and feel in a better space today. As a coach, and you were coming to me today as a client, I would be looking at who you are today and where would you like to go? And even if you don't know where you want to go, that's still fine because I'll be your buddy and we'll work it out together. Now, I may go back one or two steps to understand who you are as a human being, but I'm not there to give therapy or to unpick things. I'm there to understand who you are today so that when we are looking together to your future, I'm walking with you and seeing it from your eyes. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to lay the land of understanding it from the get-go about what coaching really is. And I think that's a really good way to set the scene. So with that, having said that, I do have some qualifications in the psychology space, but that by no means makes me a therapist. It makes me have a little bit more understanding what goes on in the head and being intrigued by it. And at no point would I be saying, you need to go and do this or you must go and do that. Those words absolutely are not in the coach person's world. It's all about how does this sit with you? Why do you think that's happened? And being inquisitive and curious and being your mirror sometimes, because quite often people know exactly what's going on, but they are so caught up in their own head, they can't hear their own words or see their own vision. So I would be the mirror to help bring that to the forefront. So that's how coaching came about, because I was really missing that in my life myself. It's like, I don't want to keep going around everywhere. I want to have grounding. I want to stand in my own space, which is my tagline. So I help people stand in their own space. And a lot of times that's to do with dealing with change, because the only thing that is constant is change, which is a Hercules quote for starters, which I do love. And even just hearing that, it's like, oh, yeah, every day is a new day. And whilst that can be daunting, it can also be a day the day before. You don't need to carry it through. If you're having a great day today, it'll be lovely to mimic it, but that's not always possible. So it's about having the balance of understanding that. And that's pretty much my line of work. I help young people stepping through the milestones from about 14 years of age through school, college, uni, that kind of big decisions that young people need to make. I help people who are stepping into the first leadership role or into their next one, and they're like, I really don't want to do what I was doing before. Can you help me? And given how I've introduced myself at the beginning, I also help people who are relocating because I've done that more times I've got fingers on my hands. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, amazing, amazing sharing. Thank you for sharing this.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so before we start, based on what you said about your story, I want to understand more like what kind of transformation you witness with your client or with people you work with. Um, what is the real impact of the work that you do on people's life and well-being, like in terms of anything like positivity or anything like that?
Yeah, I think a huge regular thing I see, no matter what the client is that sat before me. First of all, first and foremost, I love it when I can see people when they're literally like this and they're talking to me. And it might be the first session, it could be the second session. And then something is said either by themselves or by me reflecting back to them. And visibly, I see this. Like just the dropping of the shoulders, like I don't know whether it's a she gets me or I'm actually safe here. But there's something that just makes every single person go, ah. And then I know, right, now the work can start. Because up until that point, as human beings, we are guarded. It's understandable. We are guarded as human beings. So until I can see that relaxedness in a person's body, then that's when I know, okay, now the real work can begin. So that's number one. And number two, huge impact that I see is I wouldn't say I'd love to say the aha moments, and they are there for sure. But I would be lying if I said, oh, yes, it's the aha moments with every client that I see. It's not. Quite often with the clients, it's they might be with me for a little while. And at the beginning, they're like, oh, I wish I could be more, whatever. And then so many sessions in, will kind of reflect back on how they were feeling at the beginning. And then they will kind of just almost visibly turn around over the shoulder and look back and go, I actually turned that corner way back then and I never even realized. Now, to me, on a selfish note, that gives me the biggest excitement because then they're like, all right. And then this little cheeky smile comes on their faces, and I'm like, oh, you get it now. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. It's once they've got that feeling of, oh man, I did it. And it wasn't such a big thing, or I didn't even realize. It's such the awareness is wonderful for clients, especially when they're moving from a place of feeling very stuck and they can't see. They know they don't like where they're at, but they don't know where they want to go to, or they can't see it. And that scares them, but it doesn't scare me because I think, oh, that's cool. We've got a blank canvas to work with, you know? So I think, yeah, that's selfishly, it's one of the things I love about my work is when you see the change in people with them not having to do huge, massive changes. That's the thing, it can be the smallest little thing. But sometimes if there's a lot of small little things, that can turn into a big ball of stuckness or unhappiness. But if you can just scratch away at one or two little things and change one or two little things, sometimes that's all it takes. That's
Yeah,
lovely to see.
lovely. I love that. This is so beautiful. Yeah, to see the
Thank you.
transformation. Yeah.
It is one of my little I genuinely, I kind of don't like saying this because people, some people think, oh, listen to her. But it is one of the things I love about my job. It's what I finally feel that I've come to the place of really enjoying what I do. And I have to pinch myself sometimes. I say to every single client, please note, do not put me on a pedestal. I am a human being first, and then I'm good at what I do. But let's go back to the beginning. I'm a human being first, So sometimes I have to really kind of read my own work and pinch myself and go, this is a good job you're doing, Yvonne.
Yeah,
So yeah.
amazing. Okay. So, Yvonne, let's dive deep into the topic.
Uh-huh.
So the word positive is used everywhere. So but I want to start with what it truly mean. What does it actually mean to be positive?
Well, for me,
Mm.
positive is not, let's say what I believe it is not first. Positivity is not, you have a smile on your face, come what may. Um, Never think, oh, it could always be worse. Going around thinking it's a first world problem, all these kind of statements to minimize or dismiss even how you are feeling with a certain situation. I think that's doing an injustice to yourself. What I believe positivity is knowing who you are as a human being, knowing your own value system, knowing what excites you and equally what does not, what has no space in your life, what drains you, what baggage are you carrying that's not even yours? None of that's positive. What is positive, even, is knowing that you're carrying baggage that doesn't belong to you, knowing that you are doing something against your value system. Gets back to that awareness piece. Because even knowing that, believe it or not, even though it feels like a negative thing I'm talking about, knowing that is a positive aspect. Because by knowing, you can do something about it. You have a choice. You choose to stay with that negativity scenario. I mean, some people have to do jobs that they don't enjoy. I'm not saying quit your job and, no way. But my point being is you still have a choice. You choose to stay in that job because, or you choose to stay in that job. However, what do we look for to help you find something more productive for you? Or you choose to carry that other person's baggage because, or, oh, why am I carrying that baggage? Yeah. How do I work all that? So just awareness in and of itself is a huge positive thing. Positivity is also being mindful of your space in the world of other people. What can you bring to the table? What is best not to bring to the table? And I think a huge sister to positivity is kindness. I think the two very much sit together
Mm-hmm.
because one naturally enforces the other without you even trying. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, have you ever seen anybody to be kind and it's negative? Or have you seen anybody being negative and yet they're kind?
No.
They don't marry up.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
I love it.
everybody can do it. Everybody can do it.
Yeah.
And for some other people, it's about them seeing the positivity in others. So whilst I'll give another example, say you're in the workplace and you've got a colleague that you really don't get on with, and you're trying really hard to keep the vibe, um, you can choose to still really not get along with that person or accept them for who they are, and what little tiny bit of positivity can you take out of it? At the end of the day, do they make good carrot cake that they're bringing in on a Friday, even if you can't eat it? Do they, are they really annoying because they're so analytical and they're always looking at fault with things, but at the same time, it stopped you from making a big faux pas with some report you had to put together? We can really like be grinded and irritated by some people's characteristics, and yet they can help us. Yeah. So I think to try and find somebody's positivity streak, especially if we don't get on very well with them, is actually quite calming for our own psyche. We don't need to love everybody,
Yeah.
but it's nice to try and get on with people if we can.
Yeah. You're right. Okay. So, yeah, some people might say I'm just realistic. Positivity is not really for me. So, Yvonne, why being positive really matters and believing in themselves as well is so important, not just for happiness, but also for health or relationship, like everything. Why is so important?
Um, I think you can definitely be a realist and positive. I hear what you're saying. There
Yeah.
are, a lot of people say, I'm a realist. Positivity is just claptrap. It's all like happy dancing and all this. And I'm like, well, that's their that's their definition and perception of positivity. I wouldn't call that positivity. I would call that an unrealistic viewpoint of the world. Positivity sits in a different pot. But I hear what you're saying. Other people do have that perception. I think it's important to remind people of the DNA of positivity, that it isn't always about everything's brilliant, everything's wonderful, the world is just fantastic. Let's spread the love, peace, not war. I'm a total believer in peace, not war. But I understand some people go, it's not realistic. Well, you can, even in war, there are positive moments.
Mm,
There really are. Um, there are positive moments in everything that we do. You could have the worst day in the world and somebody just turning around and going, are you okay? And they don't even know you. I mean, what the heck is wrong with that? That's not somebody being over positive. That's just somebody giving care and consideration. There we go again with the kindness to another human being that naturally creates that positivity. So even if that other person is feeling really bad, the fact that somebody's just asked you, how are you? Even if you go, oh, I'm fine. The fact that they even asked you, you
mm,
cannot say that does not make you feel teensy weensy weensy bit better, or seen or heard or believed. And sometimes that's all it takes. So I am very much a realist myself.
mm,
Um, I do believe that things happen for a reason. I very quickly carry that on by saying sometimes we don't know and we'll never know what that reason is. Can be really difficult scenarios that happen to us. But sometimes we just have to have the belief that, and in some point, in some capacity, that learning will come to us. And
mm,
it's about simply being open to that. So even if we're having the real worst time, you can have a belief that positivity will return at some point. Because again, as I've said, the only thing that is constant is change.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Let me think. So, yeah, moving on. We hear a lot about body positivity,
Mhm,
um, but mind positivity feel like a
mhm.
deeper conversation. So, how do you see like the difference, and how did you connect like body positivity and mind positivity?
I think if you have mind positivity, you will have better body positivity,
Mm,
straight out. I always say to people, you are your own best friend. If you feel you have no other friend in the world, if you feel you don't have a best friend, you do. It is yourself. You can't expect anybody else to like, love, think your arms are cool or whatever, unless you think that yourself, because what you give out is what you get in return. So if you're giving out negative feelings about yourself, you're inviting others to see those negative things about yourself. If you are at peace in your own mind, I mean, there's lots of things in my body that honestly, if I was to really go to town, I'd be like, don't like that, too big, too small, too not there, too much there, whatever. But I choose not to. I choose to decide that I have a pair of eyes that work. I have a pair of ears that work. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough. Sorry. I have a throat that tickles now and again and makes me cough. um, but that's my choice. And by choosing those things in my mind, I am better placed to accept what is my body.
mm,
For me to try and perfect the external, which is the body, does not mean that the mind is positive, does not mean that the mind is content, because you can, for example, change all parts of your body, but you will still feel unhappy, that you'll still see from your mind's eye what's not right.
yeah,
And the irony is everything is right. Everything is as it should be. Everything is as it should be. Um, I definitely think there's a connection, but I really, really do believe that if you are strong in mind, and it's okay to question what's in your mind, but it's if you're strong in mind to question it and sit with it and have a real honest conversation with yourself about it, then be your own best friend. Then
mm,
everything else is just that little bit easier out in the world,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And the other thing I say to people is I often hear clients say things to me that are quite negative of themselves, I'm not this, I wish I was that, if only. And, sometimes we, as human beings, we need to let that out, which I do let them out. And then it inevitably comes in a conversation where they've got a friend and a scenario happens. And I will say, well, would you say to your friend, you should be more this? Or you need to stop doing that, and they're like, no, why would I do that? I said, well, you've just done it to yourself.
yeah,
Why is it okay to whip yourself, but you would never dream of doing it to somebody else? That's not being your own best friend. Yeah.
that's right.
Always be your own best friend. And then if you're your own best friend, you'll never be alone,
Mm,
or lonely. Or if you are, you can recover from it a bit quicker because you do have love. You're your own best friend. You do have love.
yeah, like self-love is,
Mm.
yeah,
Hugely. Yeah. Yeah.
mm, yeah. So based on that, another question is, most of us are naturally not wired to be positive. So
Hmm.
why do you think we tend to be more negative rather than positive? It's like biology or conditioning or both. What is the real reason that we are tend to be more negative?
Yeah. That stems back from eons ago, back when we were all cave people, you know. Um, we needed to be more mindful of what's not okay so that we could be safe, so that we could get through another week. Didn't have the privilege of like a roof over our head, central heating, food at the supermarket, friends we can call on. None of that was even around. So the mentality was totally different back then. But certain mentalities do come through time, which is why I don't know if you're familiar, but there's been lots of talk about the fight or fright or freeze kind of element if you're scared. And your mind is struggling with something. And that all stems back from there, about do we fight this lion that's in front of us or do we run like an Egypt, which is what I would be doing. So I wouldn't have a clue about fighting a lion, right? I would be up that tree, leaving it for somebody else to sort it out. Yeah. But we still have those feelings today, only we don't, in the UK anyway, have lions roaming around that we need to worry about, right? But nobody tells your mind that. So this is why we still sit on the negativity space, because it's about being safe. And
Mm.
if we can mitigate as many negative things as possible, then we shall be safer. And that statement isn't exactly incorrect, but we very quickly run the risk of staying in the negative space and trying to eliminate that rather than looking at the positive space and what have we already attained that keeps us safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the mind can swing like a pendulum. People with anxiety often swing like a pendulum, and for themselves, they even know the logic. Like, there's no reason for me to be panicky or upset about it, but that doesn't help because they're swinging with the pendulum, and they have to find their ways of managing that. And the other thing too about the mind, so that this plays into the negativity space, is you have the same hormones that are released around your body, regardless of whether you're excited or terrified. They're the same hormones that roam around. What makes us understand whether it's fear or excitement is the story we put to that. So physiologically, it's the same hormones. And that's feeding through our body, through our nervous system, through our brain, through our mind. That's not no different. But it's the story we've given to that scenario. Is this something exciting? Or is this something to be scared of? That creates the whoo. It's the story we give it that
Mm.
creates that, not what's going on in here. What's going on in here is the same. I personally find that quite fascinating because once you realize that, then it's like, is this something to really be fearful of? Or is it the story that I've put there that makes it stay fearful?
Mm.
Yeah. And I'm not saying for 1 second we turn around and go, yay, let's just make it an exciting story. But to be mindful, again, knowledge is power, to be aware that it's actually not as fearful as I thought it was, is still a positive step in the right direction. Therefore, that is positivity. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. I have another question, which is like life will throw us so many things at us. How do we hold on to positivity when we are facing a challenge or something very hard?
Well, it all depends on what you have in your bank before that challenge starts.
Mhm.
So the ideal thing, and I say ideal because this is not always realistic, using you helping out the realists in the room.
Mhm.
Um, but if you can bank up your positivity pocket ahead of schedule, if you like, not knowing what such a challenge might be, but you live in the space of growing your positivity, when such challenges do happen, it's a bit like a savings account. You can start pulling on that to help sustain the challenge that you're having to go through. If you've not got much money in that savings account, aka you don't have much positivity going on, then you're already down near the baseline. So you don't have much to pull on to help you get through a negative or challenging situation. That happens quite often when you hear people talking about burnout, long-term stress, depression. It can be a part of it because they've lost their savings, if you like. They've used up all their savings and they're still in this challenging situation that they're struggling with. Now, there are other avenues, of course, to try and build on that again. So I'm not saying it's a lost cause, but you were asking me, like, how do we, how is positivity helping when we're in challenging times? So a bit like, it's just like going to the doctors and the doctor says, you're really unfit. You really must go and do some exercise before you become very unwell. And loads of people will go, "Oh, I suppose I should really, shouldn't I?" And they will then. Then you've got other people who go out and they exercise every day regardless, and they might go to the doctors for an annual review. And the doctor's like, "Man, you're looking real fit for your age. That's brilliant," you know? So it's kind of no different. It's in the mind. It's just some people have to wait. It's human nature. Some people will have to wait until they have a really horrible situation. They've crawled through it and they have vowed they won't do that again. And then they will build a positivity pocket to be ready for the next time, right? So an awful lot of people have to feel the pain before they will make a vow to not be in that predicament again. But you will get those people who are going, "I'm hearing you. Let's build my positive pocket now so that I'm ready to rock and roll for when, not if, the challenges of life happen."
Okay.
Yeah.
I think like it's important to know if you are already or positive or not, like in that space. Like,
And there is no "I am 100% positive full." That doesn't exist. It's just if every single day you could do one tiny positive thing, either for yourself or for somebody else, that's putting money into that savings pot. Yeah. That's building the positive pocket
okay, okay.
always.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Amazing. So this one is close to my heart and relatable. Some people like listening are dealing with depression, anxiety, mood, and switch. Me too. Like everyone, like have this kind of mood and thing like that. What does developing a positive mindset look like for someone who is really struggling, like practically? Like, how do you develop this kind of positivity?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think the reason sometimes people find that it's quite difficult to answer is because it is actually very unique to each person. So we have these umbrella terms: depression, anxiety, mood swings, feeling flat. They are all umbrella terms. Underneath all of them is a whole lot of different people with different variances of those. And so then there's not one thing suits all. And I think what's really important is for each person who's feeling in that space, it is the one tiny little thing. So it depends on the level. Let me pick a hypothetical example. Somebody who's depressed and the thought of, like, what is the point in getting out of bed and getting dressed today? Just what's the point? There's no point. Then maybe after an hour or so that they think, I will put my slacks on. I'll put my joggers on. I'll put my t-shirt on, but I'm not going out anywhere. Fine. If that's your level of positivity for the day, that the alternative is that you stayed in bed all day, to me, that's building your positive pocket. That is a step towards positivity. It's not about jumping out of bed, dancing along and putting, doing a Bridget Jones moment. Other actresses available, but like it's not about that. It's just about what tiny, tiny thing
Mhm.
can I do to make it a teensy bit better than how it already is. And that's the win. That is the win for the day.
Yeah,
And if
totally.
that's the same the next day, so be it. But at some point, the getting out of bed and putting your joggers on and your t-shirt but not going out has become your new baseline. And at some point, you'll go, what's the next tiny little thing above that that would still be a win?
Okay, yeah, like a small things. Yeah.
All about the tiny things. It's all about the tiny things. The smaller, the better.
Okay, yeah, amazing. Thank you. So we have la last question before
Okay.
we close. Um, that inner critic, so many
Mm.
people carry itself, like carry it within silently. So, Yvonne, how do we actually replace that voice, the one that say you are not enough, not capable, you are not worthy? What do you think? How do you replace that?
Well, the first thing I would say, Nata, is that you don't actually replace it. Dun, dun, dun. What? You don't actually replace it. So the inner critic is an element of yourself, along with the excited you, the sad you, the clever you, the silly you, the uncertain you, the funny you. There's all different versions, different varieties of your own personality. And the inner critic is one of them. Now, you will have other people, other professionals who will say, I'll get rid of your inner critic, or I'll throw it out in the street. And that's fine. You know, again, it's not that one way is the only way. That's not how I work. My work is you have the inner critic. My belief system is that you need the inner critic.
Mm,
You need the inner critic as an example. When you go to cross the road and you're too busy on your phone and you're not looking up and there's a bus coming and you suddenly get that fright, followed by the inner critic going, you silly girl, you nearly killed yourself then. Well, you know, or whatever terrible thing. There is a purpose for the inner critic. So I think it's important we acknowledge that. What we can do, however, because that inner critic can be quite harsh sometimes, I
mm,
think what's important is rather than remove the inner critic from the room, that we actually learn to find where the volume switch is, the volume button, and go, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm just going to turn you down a little bit because your opinion is overruling everybody else's opinion in the room. Okay.
mm,
By denying your inner critic any space whatsoever, is like trying to get a child to be quiet in a library. Yeah. You can do it for so long, but then that child is just going to go and just erupt in one form or another, right? The
mm,
alternative is there is a quiet zone in the library, there's the children's zone in the library. How do we make this work?
mm,
So, for me, I would be saying, if you were my client, I would be saying, let's look at finding your volume switch for your inner critic. I am not going to dismiss anything that the inner critic says, because for starters, it's not for me to do that. And secondly, it's more about you finding where that volume switch is yourself so you can control it, because you can. It is totally controllable. But it's also important that it's part of your life, because there will be moments when that inner critic absolutely needs to come to the forefront and go, don't be doing that. That's not a good idea. Yeah. Because alternatively, if you were saying, no, I just want the inner critic to go away with any negative things, but I want the inner critic to stay to save me from doing something silly, you, you can't. You can't choose. You
mm,
can't pull bits apart like that. It's like I couldn't pull parts of your personality apart and say, leave that at the door, Nata. Don't need that. It's like, oh, this is me. So it's about how do we love all of ourselves, including the inner critic, with the view of turning the volume down. Therefore, the inner critic doesn't have to shout so much because it still feels it's being heard, albeit at a bit of a quieter level.
oh, that's so surprising for me.
Yeah, what would you think?
Yeah, because I thought like maybe because some inner critic will limit ourselves, no? Like it kind of say, okay, you're not worthy to go through this job or opportunity, And like think you need to like know the difference. But I don't
Yeah.
know.
So in that example, I would say to you, okay, so that's the inner critic's viewpoint that you're not worthy to go to that event, for example, right? And then I'd be saying to you, okay, so let's just turn the volume down on that a little bit. We've heard the inner critic. Thank you very much for your input. Input doesn't mean to say we're going to believe it and we're going to act on it, but thank you for your input, correct? And from that input, then I would say to you, now, do we have a choice here? You can choose to believe that,
Mm,
or you can choose not to. And then, but you might go, but that's a bit black and white, Yvonne. That's a bit, well, it's either this or that. And I'm like, so if you're going, I don't like that it's saying that, but it's making me feel I don't want to go. I'd say to you, well, here we go again. What's one tiny little step that would make you feel a little bit more worthy about going? What does that look like? So that inner critic has started you on a journey to
mm,
feel better about yourself, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Would you agree to that point?
yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So if that inner critic never said that to you at all,
Mm,
will
yeah,
you grow?
yeah, that's right.
You'll just still be in the same space. You won't grow. So you kind of need to have the inner critic there. You don't want it kicking your bottom,
No.
but it will if you let it, volume down. But then you're going, okay, I hear you. Let's park that, put it on the table. What part of what that inner critic's saying is helpful for me to look at what better looks like, or
Mm,
being more worthy looks like, or being more likable looks like, or being less mean looks like, or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like a yeah, it push you a little bit. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a little bit like something that you can almost bounce off of. You can choose to fall into it, and that's not going to feel very nice at all. And lots of people do. So it's nothing wrong with you if you do, because lots of people do fall into it. Or you can choose to see it as something that you can bounce back off of. The
Mm,
inner critic's saying that, and as your coach, I'd be going, do you truly, truly believe that? Truly? And 9 times out of 10, you'll go, well, no, but. No, but,
mm,
and I'll just go, can we just erase that but and go, well, no, full stop. Okay. However, it's not making you feel very good. So, what is the one tiny little thing we could look at so that would be less stingy because you've made a positive turnaround on it?
yeah, wow,
And
amazing.
that might be, if it's to go to the event, it might be, is the event too far away? Is the event actually the right thing for me? Networking and stuff. Are my people going to be there? Do I want to? I'm really, really tired. I've been going out every day. I actually would like a day off. Oh, maybe I don't go then. That's not a negative. That's a
Mm,
decision based on what the inner critic's trying to tell you, maybe. These are all different options. I'm not saying there's a right one, but there's so many different options you can take on what that inner critic says that are all a step in the positive direction.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, amazing. So, okay, before we close, I want to leave you with to the listener with something different today. So, not a question about the past, but one about right now. If the most positive version of yourself made this decision today, what would you choose? And yes, so one moving on to favorite phrase or quote. One favorite phrase I have or quote about positivity is you cannot have a positive life and a negative mind by
Right.
Joyce Meyer. Love it. So
Mm.
Yvonne, do you have any quote or phrase about positivity that you like or anything?
It's not so much a quote as such, but I think it's something that I'd really like to leave your audience with for them to go and consider. And it's a model developed by Martin Seligman, who is in part of positive psychology. And he developed this model called the PERMA model. And I think an awful lot of human beings like to have some type of structure to be able to work with. So I think this model could be something for your audience to go away, research it. I mean, they could just write down what I'm about to say, or they could go and research it and print it off and have it on the wall. And I just think it's really, really good. So it's called PERMA. Now, when Martin Seligman started this off, that stood for P is for positive emotion, E is for engagement, R is for relationships, M is for meaning, and A is for accomplishments. So looking at having positive emotion every day in your life, no matter how tiny that is, being engaged in things that interest you, finding out what your own value system is helps to understand what interests you. Okay. So being engaging in things that give you joy, that give you peace, that gives you satisfaction. Relationships, surround yourself with people who are like-minded to you. Everybody has a tribe. We are all completely unique, absolutely, but we all have a tribe. And some people fall into the tribe dead easy, and other people it takes time to find, but you will find them. And it's not about quantity of that tribe, it's about quality of that tribe. Okay. And also with relationships, it's people, family, we don't get to choose to be with them. And sometimes that can be a bit difficult. Other times you feel blessed. So it's about finding the balance in that. But other relationships, you do get to choose. Do I want to be friends with this person? Do I not? Do I want to work with this person? Do I not? You do have choices. Meaning, do stuff in your life that's meaningful. Like, for example, I volunteer to the King's Trust. That fills my value system of giving to community. Do something that's meaningful. And the accomplishments is always every day is a school day. Every single day is a school day. The day I wake up and I haven't learned something for the day, no matter how tiny, it's going to be a sad day. Because every day is a learning day. That's pretty exciting, right? That
Yeah.
you go to bed at night and you go, well, I didn't know that and I learned that today. That's pretty cool. Okay. Afterwards, on the PERMA model, another one's been added, and I think it's actually really, really good. And that's H at the end. So it still sounds like PERMA, but we have a H at the end, and that's for health, be it physical or mental health. Because a little bit what you're alluding to today in our chat, like with the positive body image and positive mind, it's the same with health. Health is an umbrella term. Within it is mental health and physical health, and they do go hand in hand. You can be physically fit, but mentally unwell, correct?
Yeah.
However, if you're mentally well, even if you're physically unwell, it doesn't seem to harm you as much because you're strong in mind. Yes? So it's always about health, is always about do things that actually is healthy for you as a human being. Again, I'm talking tiny little things. Forget the big things, the tiny little things is what builds our positive pocket.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
This is the end of today's episode, and what a conversation has been very, very amazing. And Yvonne, thank you so much for honesty, for your wisdom, for accepting to be in this podcast. You have given us so much of insight and reflection. Yeah, amazing. For people that want any coaching with you, how they gonna find you?
So my favorite platform that I play on is LinkedIn. So you will find me on there, both my name, Yvonne Roseney, and also my business, which is YMR Coaching and Development. I have my website, which is www.ymrcoaching.com. And I'm also on Instagram, which is at YMR Coaching. They would be the main places you will find me. Happy to connect with people. Let me know why you want to connect, because I do have an awful lot of people who do want to connect through. I try very hard to manage my network. So I have people that are helpful in my network rather than just anybody. So it's always helpful if people say, Like if they, for example, came across me from this podcast that we did, things like that is really, really helpful. And I would actually suggest that to anybody that anybody wants to follow or connect with. It's always really beneficial to just introduce yourselves as to why. But yeah, they're the places you can get a hold of me. And other than that, all I can say is like everybody have a great day. Every day is a good day. Have a great time.
Amazing. To everyone listening, wherever you are right now, your mind is not your enemy. It's a garden, and you get to choose what grows there. Positivity is not a destination, it's a daily practice, it's an act of self love. Please leave a comment and tell me what touched you most in this episode. This may become your wisdom in a pocket today. And if you enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share it with someone that you know that needs that, and follow us Spotify and Instagram. See you on the next episode. Bye bye.
Stay well. Bye bye.